This is the entrance to the cemetery at Great Torrington. Immediately in the centre we see the War Memorial. On each side are lists of names of men from the area who died in the two wars. There are several sections within the graveyard. This is the one immediately through the entrance past the chapels and the War Memorial. Looking down the valley, and you see on the opposite hillside some allotments. Let's have a walk through this section first. Immediately one's eye is taken to this larger than life form of a woman in gold colour, and if we go into the base, Sister Navidita, 1867-1911, greatly revered in India as an educationalist and campaigner for India's freedom movement. She was born as Margaret Elizabeth Noble in Ireland and grew up in England. And then it mentions her master Swami Vivekananda, and a little bit there at the bottom which we can't quite read, but that's a really outstanding statue. Close by, a large table tomb to the Reverend James Buckpitt, a wise friend, a public-spirited citizen, a true helper and defender of the poor, and a faithful minister. This one reads, to Anne, the beloved wife of George Trott, who died 1871, aged 68 years. And then Martha, his second wife, who died in 1904. And then at the bottom we've got George Trott, caretaker of Howe Church for 48 years, who died in 1905. This one remembers Alice, the daughter of John and Jane Brent of this town, Great Torrington, died 1878, aged 13 months. And then underneath that we've got Lily Brent, 1885, aged 6 years. And at the bottom we've got John Brent, presumably the father, difficult to read with the grass there. In memory of James Smale, who departed this life 1861 and aged 75 years. And then Elizabeth Smale, widow of James, and she was 85 years. Bit of a slant on this one. This remembers Keziah Cock, 1875, aged 52. And then beneath that, Jane Gilbert. Not clear what the connection is between those two ladies. William Southcott, 1868, aged 29 years. And then in memory of John Singh, 1905, aged 72. And a few stones further on, we have Eliza Ann Cock, daughter of Walter Cock and Grace his wife. And then we have Grace Cock and Walter Brown Cock. Close by, this pointed one, John Bound Kingdom, 1889. And then his sister, Mary Cox, the plural with the S on the end. And she died in 1909, aged 86. Gladys Mary, the wife of Augustus Sweet, 1939, aged 41. This one retains some of the iron railings around it, although the decoration seems to have gone. The inscription on this white stone is Sarah Farley, wife of the above. Unfortunately, I can't see the above, it's rather faded. And then their daughter, Susan Hoskins, is at the bottom. And a story behind this one. Our dear son, George Malcolm Daniel, who died by accident at Redruth in Cornwall in 1950, aged 12. In memory of William Fowler, a respected townsman, 1881, aged 50. And then Eliza, his wife beneath that, she died 1907. Another one here to an Augustus suite. This one died in 1895, aged 32. And further along we have that surname again. John Sweet, 1883, aged 45, and his wife Eliza, 1889. Sweet is not a name we come across very often, but clearly there were quite a few here in Great Torrington. This one's retained its inscription very well, very clear. It's to Rosina, the wife of Albert Henry Eyre. She died in 1907, just 36 years old. And beneath that we have Albert Henry, her husband, and he lived on to 1936, so another 30 odd years more. This one to mother and daughter. The top name is Priscilla, the widow of the late Mark Ferris of Plymouth. And then beneath that we have Sarah Jane Doe, widow of George Doe, the town clerk of this borough, who died at Ivy Bridge. It's only sort of 15-20 miles from here. He died in 1909. Mother and daughter. A lot of the stone they've used here has retained its inscriptions very well indeed. You can see Thomas Leigh of Derplay. Then if I go to the right, Elizabeth Jones, daughter of Harry and Margaret Kendall. Then across there we've got Charlotte, the wife of William Passmore. And they're very readable inscriptions on the majority here. This horizontal tomb has retained its railings, but unfortunately without some cleaning we're not going to be able to get an inscription off this one. Sergeant Major Thomas Shepherd, formerly of the CMR and NDH, who departed this life 1888, aged 69. I don't know what those initials stand for. I believe nowadays NDH is North Devon Hospital, but I suspect that's not the answer on this one. This is probably some regiments. Perhaps somebody can let me know what CMR and NDH are. This one is to Richard Ching, 1892, aged 69. And then beneath his wife Maria Ching, who died in 1907. This one's in a very shady spot under the trees. Hope you can read it. Number 719, Trooper Frederick William Selby, C Division, South African Constabulary, was killed in action at Engelbrecht's Drift in South Africa OR colony. 1901, the 21st year, the only one from this ancient borough in the Great Boer War. Very nicely done stone with the flowers, the foliage brought out in relief in front of the cross. Must have taken quite a lot of carving to do that. The inscription is rather grubby, but I can make out Charlotte Causey, 1851-1942. A stone that is much smaller than the others around here. It's been standing since 1867. And this is Lydia, the daughter of Richard and Mary Ann Miller. And she died aged 2 years and 6 months. But here we are, 150 or so years later. The stone is still standing upright, still very readable. So she's still remembered by those that come past. At the top of this stone we have a large ship depicted, a warship, and I can make out on the inscription beneath Robert Henry Palmer, Royal Navy, lost his life in the Battle of Jutland. Go back up to the ship again. And if you look closely on the end of it, you can see the name HMS Black Prince. That presumably was the ship that he lost his life in. Over against the back hedge is this very tall monument. It has the angel with the pointing finger upwards and a trumpet in the left hand. And if we come down we can make out the name on there, William Vaughan, 1902. Now it looks as though it was expecting a lot more names on the statue, but in fact it's just William. A large table tomb, and this one has an inscription that's very clear for all to read. The name is Hannah Parkhurst Courtry or Gautry. It's such a peaceful spot. Very little noise other than the birds singing. Nobody else in this cemetery. Just a very lovely spot. Well, I've moved up into one of the other sections of the graveyard. This one, Nora Margaret Annie, the darling child of Lewis W. and Mary J. Brown of Coombe Farm. And then beneath that, Victor Lewis Clark Brown, who died while a prisoner of war in Japanese hands, 1943, aged 23. And I found my first CWGC memorials. This one is to Private W. Popham, Devonshire Regiment, 1918. And you have to love the name on this one. In loving memory of Fanny Friendship, 1910, age 77. Beneath that is Rhoda, wife of the late Russell Metters. But I just like the name Fanny Friendship. We had one of these surnames earlier on, and I thought at the time it's rather unusual. This is John Singh, 1914, and then Elizabeth, 1937. Singh as a surname is not common in the UK. An unusual one with the two axes at the top, and this is in memory of Corporal Frederick Rhodes by the officers, NCOs and men of the 105th Company Canadian Forestry Corps. Killed on active service 1918, aged 49. Up in this corner is a garden of remembrance. These are for people that were usually cremated, sometimes just buried elsewhere. Very nicely kept though. A lot of flowers on a lot of stones. One suspects that this is a war casualty, although it doesn't specifically say that. William Henry Baker, A Company, 8th Devons, who died at Cambridge Hospital, Aldershot, 1914, aged 32 years. The first name on this one is Henry Giles, 1886 I think, aged 46, interred at Stoke in Bermuda in the West Indies. And we have other names below there. Mary Giles, his widow, and then their daughter Emily Louisa Giles. This one here has the statue of Christ hanging on the cross, and on the base we can read John Adams, and he died in 1910, aged 80 something years. On this cross we have an epitaph that we don't see very often. James Bond, a faithful old labourer, 1871. A faithful old labourer. Well, I'm going to draw this visit to Great Torrington Cemetery to a close. It's a lovely little small town cemetery, very well looked after. All the grass has been mown, and recently. The stones themselves standing upright, very few at a bad angle, and the inscription's easy to read. Great Torrington, well worth a visit. Till the next time.